Where we give you guys a little something to think about to help your cats live longer, healthier, and happier lives. And today's subject is so important, guys. Today's subject is all about hyperthyroidism in cats. This is a growing epidemic, and I mean epidemic. Back in 1980, 1 in 200 cats were diagnosed with hyperthyroidism. Today, it's 1 in 10. Okay, so we were like, why? Why is this happening? Why are so many cats? I mean, many of you guys are probably all dealing with, or many of you are dealing with a cat that has elevated thyroid levels, or is already diagnosed with hyperthyroidism. Maybe they're on medication. So we wanted to see what is happening, how we can help prevent it, and how we can help our kitties that do have hyperthyroidism. So
let's jump in.
We dug into the science. We dug into the studies, and we're bringing you guys, and this is our Rusty Trusty. Just so you know, I spent a long time making this today. So this is, and it will all make sense with the studies. We have each study here. It will all make more sense as we go into it.
One more little statistic before we get started. I do want to say that I believe it's 95% of cats that are hyperthyroid that have hyperthyroidism are over the age of 10, which is why Dr. Karen Becker and many veterinarians, Dr. Jean Dodd, really recommend that you start testing for this with our senior kitties. Dr. Becker, I know, starts testing her kitties at 7 years old and
yes.
So something to keep an eye on, because this is a growing epidemic.
Yeah, absolutely. So we said why. Let's see. What did the study say? What does the research say as far as why? In 1980, were there 1 in 200 cats, and in 2022, 1 in 10. Okay. So obviously our first go-to, if you guys know us, you follow us, you know us, we're going to be like, well, of course, the food. You know, back in the day, cats were indoor, outdoor. They usually got hunt a lot of their own food. Now we're feeding this like the ultra processed food. I'm sure that has something to do with it, right? Well, the studies are showing a lot of things, right? So this first study comes from Oregon State University. And this one was very interesting. You'll see the little couch here. Like, how does this have to do with hyperthyroidism? Very interesting study that shows that starting in the 1980s is when the furniture companies started adding flame retardants to the furniture that we purchase at the store. Okay, they did this smart-wise, right? I mean, it was smart, right? Because if your house catches on fire, you don't want your couch to blow up, right? So they started adding flame retardants to it. And now, us bringing our cats inside, and they're sleeping on the couches, they're showing that there's a direct correlation with cats that have hyperthyroidism or elevated TT4 levels and these flame retardant chemicals in the household. It says the way that they studied it was they attached this silicone pet tag, which is very much made with basically the same chemicals as the flame retardant chemicals, to 78 hyperthyroid and non-hyperthyroid cats. The silicone is a pretty good mimic of the flame retardants. The research showed that even in healthy cats without hyperthyroidism, it showed that they had the higher levels, showing elevated thyroid levels with cats that were wearing this collar that contribute to, or that mimics the same thing as the flame retardant chemicals that they're putting on our furniture. So of course you guys are thinking, come on, Jay, like, it's our furniture. What do we do? Well, there are some things we can do. Of course, you could buy organic. We're not going to do that. We're cheap, right? We are broke. We're not going to do that. But some things that you can do is, one, try to get your cats off the couch. We need to enrich them. If you guys joined our enrichment live episode roundtable this morning with the dream team, then, you know, enrichment is so important. If we can get our cats up and off the couch a little bit, then that's great. But we can also just provide a barrier, a blanket, put a blanket on the couch where the cats lay, and that will help to reduce the exposure to the flame retardant chemicals. It'll show the study showed that some cats in the same household, some cats had a higher level of these toxins and others had a lower level. And when they did the research into it, it was because this cat liked to hang out at the window perch and the other cat actually liked to hang out on the couch. So
something to think about.
Yes, something to think about.
Number two, the studies, I don't know if you were able to join us on our Inside Scoop with Dr. Karen Becker and Roddy Habib last weekend before. We were blown away to learn that the level of BPA, what did I say? BHA, different. In canned foods has been related, like there are studies that show that the pop top, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
These little guys, the pop top lids for wet foods actually contain, Rodney was talking about the glue that's in there that keeps them attached to the cans. But also the studies are showing that it could actually be the flexibility that is releasing the toxins into the food.
Which is basically the glue, okay? So like we all know that everything's coming out now. This one is not BPA free, this prescription diet, but many of the cans are coming out saying BPA free. Well, the studies are showing that the can itself might not be lined with BPA, it's usually lined with something else, but that's just as toxic. But the pop top can themselves, the glue that sticks it together is actually a high contributor to hyperthyroidism
in cats. It literally has a section on hyperthyroidism in this study showing that 50% of the wet food in the diet is associated with 3-fold higher risk of developing hyperthyroidism. It is remarkable to think about that. So
it is, and this was a large study, guys. So it was a large study of control in hyperthyroid cats demonstrated an association between hyperthyroidism and the cats fed from the pop top container. So we might be like, oh, I've got the best brand. I'm feeding good ingredients. I'm feeding good food. But
this is why
we didn't know. This is what our motto is: learn, share, and grow.
Right. And this is why there are a lot of brands out there right now, like Open Farm. Tiki Cat is doing this as well. Well, they're actually making their foods in sachets, Waruva, or cartons instead of even the BPA-free cans. Even that is showing that it's still leaching into the food somehow.
Yes, results of that study suggested that overall consumption of pop-top canned foods at various times throughout a cat's life was associated with greater risk of developing hyperthyroidism.
Isn't that crazy too? Because it's like our big challenge is to get our cats off of the kibble and onto a wet food, and then there's risks in the food as well. Is that sticking?
Yeah.
Okay, so this one though is
kind of flimsy.
Also one that's going to be
a big one. So this is and that one was ResearchGate. This one is actually from PubMed Central. And this is kind of good news, guys. Okay, so not all bad news, but this study is correlating iodine, which we probably know. Any of you guys that have cats with hyperthyroidism, you know how iodine plays a role, and they're relating hyperthyroidism to iodine levels, how much our cats are taking in, and how much our cats actually need. This is a very interesting study because it shows that they did this study. It's an abstract study of feeding cats an iodine-restricted diet and as a method of controlling hyperthyroidism in kitties. So they use the cats with hyperthyroidism, and this is the great news, guys. So the TT4 levels normalized in this study in 83% of the cats within 2 to 6 months that were fed a low or restricted iodine diet, so no iodine. So we're always like, well, but don't they need it? AFCO says they need it. AFCO says they need it. Well, there was the other part of this study was a comparison of health parameters in normal cats, so healthy cats, fed a limited iodine prescription food versus a conventional diet. So a food that does not have iodine in it, that does not have the salt in it, it showed that it's likely that healthy cats can also eat a low iodine diet. So proactive care here. A healthy cats can also eat a low iodine safely, which may, in our opinion, contribute to the lessen the risk of hyperthyroidism in cats, which is fantastic news. But that leads us to what? Fishies. Right? That leads us to the fishies. How many foods are we feeding, whether it's in a can, whether it's in a bag? How many foods are we feeding with fish in the diet for our cats? They love it, right?
Well, and it's one of those things that when we're talking about food sensitivities, fish is often a culprit of that. Fish and chicken are one of the top two, right? And when we were eliminating fish from Pooh Bear's diet when he had a food sensitivity, we were amazed at how many of the foods actually had fish in it, even though it was the beef formula or the chicken flavor or whatever it may have been. Look at those ingredients to see how much of that food is actually some sort of fish or.
Yeah, so fish is really high in iodine, guys.
Yeah.
It's just a fact, right? So fish is really high in iodine. So if we can lower the amount of food that we feed our cats with food that are fish flavored, then we can help prevent hyperthyroidism in cats. It's just the science, right? So what we want to do, it's not a species appropriate diet anyway, even though cats absolutely love it. They don't go fishing in the wild. So if we can slowly wean our cats off of that fish flavored food and onto a more species appropriate, lower iodine meat or protein, then this is going to be really, really helpful. And if your kitty has hyperthyroidism, guys, you've got to get them off the fish. You have to get them off the fish because we're just feeding the problem as we're going. Put some blankets on your couches. Stay away from the pop top cans, and get your cats on the road to a healthier and happier life.
Once we know better, we can do better. There's no way to escape.
And there it goes.
The toxic world we live in, but we can do things to mitigate it. And once we realize that there are certain things that impact our cats, we can lessen those risks.
Yeah,
so thank
absolutely.
you guys so much.
So
for
thank you
joining
so much for joining us here on a Think About It Thursday. We are going to be live in about 20 minutes for our podcast. It's a Q&A podcast. If you guys are on our text thread, start shooting us text questions, one question per text. Ask us anything. We are going to be answering that on our podcast live very shortly. We love you guys so much, and we hope you have a beautiful Thursday.
Love you.
Love you guys.
Bye, y'all.